Welcome, everybody. Today is one of my favorites. We get coffee talk, and we'll explain everything by that. But this is the Doctor's Orders live stream on the Dr. Nick's Amazing Man Stuff YouTube channel. My name is Dan C. Bearded. I am the co-host of this show, and I would kindly invite you guys to hit the thumbs up on this video. And if you want to share this out, it is a unique show. It's an inviting show, a welcoming. Sometimes you'll learn stuff, right? I'm going to learn some things today. So if you guys want to invite people, I know that you would be proud to share the content and the community that we have built here, and it would mean a lot to us as well. And speaking of us, first off, we got Miss Jill in the chat. Shout out to Jill, who is the co-owner, the equal half, the mad scientist behind Dr. Nick's. And anything else to add on there for Jill, Mr. Dr. Nick, before I introduce you?
I mean, dear God, the finder of lost things, the formulator of all things that smell good, the fixer of bad days, the packer of lunches, the dog whisperer, yeah, Jill. Yeah, that's her. I mean, she wears about 15 hats.
Yes.
Please hold the applause. Hold the applause. She doesn't like the attention.
And before we get into the Nick introduction, we do have to stop and say happy birthday to Garrett. His birthday is today.
Happy birthday, bro.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of special things on his birthday. It's right 7-Eleven day, so you get free Slurpees. Also, it is Prime Day, so Amazon Prime has crazy deals. And then also, I just saw it posted today. I don't know if it's national or not. I think it probably is, but it's free 6-inch subs at Subway Day.
Wow.
So you got like,
I think I understand, if I get this right, I think it's also his beard anniversary is on his birthday.
It's a year today, yes.
Yeah, so he's got the yeared celebration, he's got the birthday, and he's got all kinds of other free stuff and hanging out with a bunch of good friends here.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
I mean, it sounds like a pretty good day so far.
Yes. And he's got a great wife at home that's taking care of him and making it special. So,
Melissa is the master of making things feel special. I mean, that's the amount of footwork that woman does to make sure that this guy knows that she loves him is impressive.
Yep.
She is awesome.
And I've had the honor of meeting her several times, just as warm and bubbly and amazing in person as she is online too.
Oh, dude, that's awesome, dude. I'm glad that video was cool. I'm pumped that we were able to contribute.
Heck yeah. And I would also like to introduce the gentleman to my side here. I call him my Plymouth pal ever since about 20 minutes ago. It's what I'm going with. And this is Nick Phelps, Dr. Nick's, Master Phelps, the doctor of time and space, or space and time. It doesn't matter. He can bend both of them. And so
that's right.
Exactly. It can be either way. This is Dr. Nick. Nick, how you doing?
What is up? My co-hostess with the mostest.
Whoa, doing good.
Today's going to be a good one. I'm pumped today, man. Yeah. Of course, I prepped for a coffee talk by drinking lots of coffee. So hopefully I don't get the robot voice effect over the internet connection today, because it'll just be all running together. I'm moving too fast today, man.
And again, guys, if you just come in, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. Today, we are going to talk about coffee. Nick is going to kind of steer the ship today. I'm used to kind of being in control and running everything and then kind of like feed in like a point guard. Guys, I wouldn't even know where to facilitate today. So Nick's going to do that. We do have a document that I've pinned in the chat, so you guys can click at any time to kind of reference some of the things Nick's going to talk about. And we're just going to learn. We're just going to get feedback from you guys and talk all things coffee. I will say it's been a couple of weeks since we've really talked about Dr. Nick's Amazing Man Stuff, since we've talked about beard products. Next week is going to be dedicated to talking about the recap of the new products. So we have Yule Tree, Peppermint Bark, Growth Stem Oil, and Key Lime. All of those are new, plus some other things we kind of snuck in the background, like different size body wash, number 9 in different products. So we got a bunch of like new things, and I just want to dedicate next week to talking about those. So if you guys are itching and you're like, I got to get product talk, I got to talk about products, next week is going to be dedicated to that. Sound good, Nick?
I love it, man.
Heck yeah. And I do have to start with a PSA about coffee. As most of you know, I do not drink coffee. I've never drank coffee. I despise most coffee flavored things, such as like coffee ice cream. Can't do it. That's horrific and disgusting. I do like the smell of coffee, though, and I do like the joy it brings my wife. And I will say, Nick and Jill have infected my home with coffee, but in a positive way. So Nick and Jill were the plugs. They were the influences to get Sam to do a Nespresso machine. She had been going out and getting Starbucks every day, all these different things. Got pretty expensive, but the thing that killed me is she was never happy with them. She'd go to places, spend $6, and then complain. And then Nick and Jill really preached the Nespresso and why that might be a better option. She's been hooked. Everywhere we've gone since, if we're out on a vacation or traveling, she'll get all these coffees and she's like, it's not as good as my Nespresso. So almost every day.
Isn't that crazy?
I know. Almost every day she does not go out and buy coffee. She's much more happy to do it at home. And we averaged it out once we factored in like for a year for the equipment plus the pods and all that stuff, that it's like less than $2 for her coffee to make it at home, like much less than $2. And so that's pretty cool to think about the change that they had there. And it just singularly came from Nick and then her friend Courtney as well. So that's where I'm at with coffee. And that's about all I got. I'll be kind of butting in and giving some feedback. And Nick, if you have questions or perspective, kind of hit me. But man, this is going to be your ship to steer today.
Nice, man. Well, this is one of those streams, right? Where it's like, this is a common detour in our normal stream. G Squared and I end up going back and forth about coffee over and over again. And I know Garrett's a big coffee fan. He bleeds coffee. And oh yeah, see, we got lots of caffeinated people here. And so as most people who know me know, I don't do anything a little bit, right? I kind of dive a little too far into just about everything I do. And it's for no other reason, I guess, than I don't know, I get kind of obsessed with stuff and I find things I like. And then I love learning about them. I like learning about them and exploring it. And I'm an equipment junkie. Like I'm a nerd for things that are like, yeah, like anything that can give me an excuse to like read about things and find the best way to do something or the best piece of equipment. I love reading reviews and just checking out, product specs. For some reason, it's just like my favorite thing to do. And I just ordered, by the way, speaking of G Squared, he made the suggestion of a roaster out there called Dean's Beans. And so we're going to talk about that. I ordered some stuff from them today, G Squared. I'm going to do my next batch of cold brew with one of their medium roasts. And I'm going to try their espresso roast, their Italian espresso roast in my espresso maker. But we're going to talk about all those things today. We're going to talk about hot coffee. We're going to talk about cold coffee. And we're going to talk about the ridiculous path that I've gone down with cold brew and cold coffee just in general. And the reason I went down this path was just for the reason that Dan was talking about Sam. I was always stopping somewhere and picking up a nitro cold brew. And for those of you who don't know nitro cold brew, it's just like regular cold brew, except just like they do with like a stout beer, where instead of using CO2, they use nitrogen. And when you introduce nitrogen to a liquid, like either beer or coffee, instead of giving it like sharp carbonation that's foamy, it gives it like that Guinness kind of a head to it, where it's like that thick foamy kind of a top to it. And it comes from that natural nitrogen release of carbonation. And so I was always getting nitro cold brew, paying $5 a cup for it, like minimum. You go into Boston, it's $8 for like a 22-ounce nitro cold brew. And what always killed me is I'd see them pour some of the concentrate and then fill it with water, right? Or you'd get the nitro and it's already watered down. You're paying $8 for it. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. And when we go through the equipment list, it's going to sound terrible. Like it's like $1,000 worth of stuff. But if you drink coffee like I did, it doesn't take many days of not buying cups of coffee for that to actually become cash flow positive.
Right.
It really is. And last week we just talked about budgeting, right? And that was one of the things where like I'm looking at the budget and I'm looking at like the percentage that you spend on like food out, and like a big chunk was coffee. And I was like, okay, I gotta fix this. clearly not going to cut back on coffee. That wasn't an option. So let's, oh, nice. Later, Corbin. And I think, yeah, so this will be really good. We're going to talk about coffee itself. So talk about coffee roasters, some local ones that I like, and we'll talk about one that got referred to me here from G Squared. We're going to talk about equipment, but we're going to do it across two categories. We're going to talk about espresso and we're going to talk about cold brew. And we're going to talk about some of the things that go into like good espresso and good cold brew. And there's some sheets out there. And I'll probably pop another link in this document to a guide that I followed that talked about volumes and weights and other things that kind of go into good espresso pulls. But we'll cover all that stuff. And it seems like I was going to ask a question and see if we could like get people's feedback on it. But it looks like I'm kind of already getting the point here, because it looks like, let's see, we are probably majority of the people here look like they're like cold brew people. It looks
Seems like it. Yeah.
Yeah. It looks like a lot of people do drink hot coffee, but the preference seems to be around cold brew.
Yep. And if you guys have coffee related questions, put them in the chat at any time. I will star them and I will make sure I get to feed them in at different times. Like we have a question by G Squared and we got a question by Mark. So we will get to those ones, guys. So don't you worry.
Oh yeah. And one thing I didn't throw on here actually was one of the things that G Squared was specifically asking about, which was a grinder. So I'm going to show you.
He has a question. I'll read that as you're looking at something. He says, I need advice on a grinder. I didn't want to spend more than 150, but I sent you that Encore ESP450 and it has better grind options for espresso and it's easy to clean. And then he said, I know Dan doesn't like spending money on himself, but I hate when I'm going to buy something that I could have spent 50 more on a way better product. I've already committed to $150.
Dude, yeah, I'm in the exact same boat as you. And one of the articles that I read recently after talking to you through just over here and on email was looking at I was looking at Serious Eats, and Serious Eats had like a really cool review of a bunch of them, and one of them that's on there is the Baratza Encore. And that was one of the ones I was actually looking at as a replacement for mine, because my burr grinder is actually an old crappy one where it doesn't have any form of measurement on it at all. It kind of goes into like a main cup and then you got to kind of weigh it out. So I was actually going to I can put the one that I have on my spreadsheet, but I'm actually thinking one of the things we could do is kick that back and forth, because I'm in the market for a new one and so are you. So I'm thinking we can kind of look at a couple of them and talk about what we like about them. Like, let's just do like a live shopping comparison session here. I think that'll actually be kind of a cool break from the stuff that I already have. And so one of the things I was looking at was the, on the grinder topic, the Serious Eats review is actually really good. It kind of reminds me of like what like America's Test Kitchen does for food, where they kind of dive really deep into like the nuts and bolts of things and get a little nerdy with it.
Nice.
I was looking at it though, after you mentioned it. I really like the Encore. One of the ones I was looking at was the Breville Smart Grinder Pro, but it's $200. And I guess what I don't like about it is it tries to do too many things automatically, right? Like it wants you to set, like you tell it how many shots you want, for example, and like the grind size, but it's all digital and you set the grind based on a timer. So what I'm ultimately looking for, I would love to have a grinder that has the built-in weight function where you can have it weigh your little your porta pot, and you can your portafilter, and you put it in and it grinds into the portafilter and it hits a target weight. Like that's the one I'm after, but I have not found one under like $800. And so I mean they're way up there. So I don't know. The Breville one, it looks good, but I fear that since I'm going to be doing it manually anyway, by weight, I'm going to set a time that works with the bean I have, to get the right weight. And so another thing that I can kind of pull up and I can add it to this spreadsheet is I found a really good guide that talks about the perfect volumes and weights that kind of go into espresso, right? And that's key. And like whether you're doing single shots or double shots, and it kind of does depend on your machine. But the target when you're getting a double shot is that you should be hitting like 60 milliliters of pull. Like your dose should be 60 milliliters. And your time to get that dose shouldn't be much over 30 seconds. And it's kind of weird, right? Like, so what people do, I think a lot of the time with these automated espresso machines is, and this is, I guess, where we'll start, is talking about espresso. So we're kind of already on the topic. You know, it's crazy because anyone who doesn't know, the coarseness of your grind affects how much weight, so you hit one target weight. The coarseness of your grind can affect the volume of that weight of coffee grind, right? So in the grounds. So, a coarse grind, you're going to take up more volume to get the same weight as you would with a really fine grind because it packs in tighter, right? More of a powder. And so you want to basically adjust your grind setting to where when you're getting the right dose of, when you're getting the right weight in grinds that you want, right? That when you put pressure on it to pack it down in the portafilter, that pressure also dictates how long the water takes to move through that coffee to get you the volume you want on your output. So you really have a bunch of things to worry about: the weight of your grinds, the coarseness of the grind, the tightness that you pack the grind, and then how long the machine runs to move a target amount of volume through those grinds. And so you can kind of get it to where it's close, right? You're not going to weigh every espresso pull you pull out of your machine. You're not going to weigh every portafilter worth of grinds. The goal is that you kind of calibrate what you have to your setup. So you kind of start with a bean that you're going to be using, and then you figure out how long does your grinder need to run to get a certain weight. And one of the things that I use to calibrate that, if you want to click on this link, Dan, it's under espresso, and you can look at that tiny 2S, line 11. Yeah, so if we click on that guy, this thing comes in extremely handy. So what this does, it does two things. And this is going to save you guys a ton of effort to get like perfect espresso in my mind. What this does is you put your little, whether you're doing the beans and you're getting your grind weight, or if you decide to not use volume, but use weight for your actual liquid that comes out, your actual espresso, this scale does something really unique in that it has a timer on it and it's pressure activated. So if you have a cup there and it's under your grinder and you turn your grinder on, as soon as the first grind hits the scale, it starts a timer and it starts counting up the weight. And so you watch the weight count up, and then as soon as you get to the right weight you want, you stop your grinder and you look at the time that's on the scale. And then that is the amount of time you need to run your grinder to get a target weight. So you don't need to mess with trying to use the timer on a grinder if it has one or anything else to figure out your weight. This thing starts when it starts weighing. So it'll give you a perfectly, because once in a while when you start those timers on your grinder, the timer starts in the grinder before anything comes out. So it's really tough to go based on, okay, if I run it for 30 seconds, I get this much. If I run it for 32 seconds, I get this much. This just dials it in right out of the gate for you. So you start with a really good target weight. That's how long you run your grinder. And then from that point, you just adjust how long or how hard you pack that coffee down in order to get the draw that you want through your beans. And then you set that in your calibration in your espresso machine to run for a double shot, for example. So it really, it's like this thing was a game changer. It helps a lot. It makes things, so one N pressure or 100 grams weight can wake it up. And so you're obviously not going to be using 100 grams. So what I usually do is as soon as I see the grinds fall out, I just tap it. And so I just tap the scale as soon as it starts weighing, and that activates the timer on it. And I actually found it actually, the 1N, I think it actually is a lot lower than what it says it is, because that thing starts most times when grinds hit it, which is pretty lightweight, obviously. But
that's awesome.
If we go back to that list, I actually simplified this process for myself a little bit. And click on line 8, the Breville Barista Pro. So this is the espresso machine I use. And it is, $850, right? It's not cheap. But what I like about this is a couple of things. One, it's got a built-in grinder. And you'll read reviews on this thing and people are like, don't get machines with built-in grinders. They're not accurate. It's not this, not that. Well, I've actually found that they are really accurate. They're only as accurate as you calibrate them though. So the calibration process in the beginning is, it is Prime Day. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Geez, Chris, this is perfect timing. Dan pointed that out before this. And so, what I like about this is when you calibrate it, it has a little spot there you can kind of see on the left. So under the screen, you see like this little black, thing that kind of creates like a little cone shape. Yeah, right there. That actually holds your portafilter. So you put your filter in there and you tap it against the back and it just grinds the beans straight down into the portafilter. And if you use a scale in place of your portafilter first, right? And that scale is telling you how much weight you get. When you get to the target weight that you want for your grind, whether you're doing a single shot, double shot, whatever you use, just use a espresso calculator out there. It tells you what weight you should have for what coarseness and everything. Then you set that time to be what runs on that automated grinder. So the process is so easy because you just take your filter, you pop it in there, you push it back. You're getting within a couple of grams of accurate weight. You pull it out, you pack it, you move it over one slot, and it's right there in your machine. You hit brew, and away you go. You have perfect espresso. And there's one other piece that I'll talk about as I'm talking about this, and that is it is line 9 on the spreadsheet there, Dan. If you click on that guy, this is a game changer. So this guy clips on top. If you click on the second photo there. Yeah, so this guy clips on top of your portafilter. And it's like a little extension sleeve that goes kind of above it, right? So it clips on and it pops in with it, and you grind straight into this. And what that does, it eliminates the messy grinds everywhere. So because you have a big collar, you can actually like tap that thing down on the counter and no grinds go anywhere when you tap it. And then you use your tamper and you press it down. And while it's in there, you pull off that little ring just like that. And then you pull off the ring while the tamper's in there. And then you get like perfectly flat, evenly distributed grinds without them going all over the damn place, which is, you look at the counter of a coffee shop, there's just grinds everywhere. And that's the way my kitchen looked before I got one of these. And so for $11 here on Prime Day, boom, that's like
brilliant.
It's a no-brainer. Like that thing is a game changer when you're making stuff with this machine. But
and why do they have to be flat? Forgive my ignorance there. What is the difference if it's packed in or not?
So there's two things there. One is how tight the grinds are impacts how long it takes for the water to move through the grinds, giving you the proper amount of extraction.
Gotcha.
So sometimes when people go to a coffee shop, they'll be like, "Ugh, this espresso sucks. It's bitter." Or they'll get something and it tastes burnt, or it tastes like extra oily.
Yeah.
That's because you had too long of a draw. So that could be from too fine of a grind or too tight of a pack. And that probably means that it took the water like 40 to 50 seconds to move through it. And you get all of the tannins and all the bad tastes out of the coffee that you don't want. Whereas if you pack it too lightly and the coffee only takes 15 seconds to move through it, it's going to be light, watery, and it's not going to have any crema on the top of it. So you got to really time it inside that magic window of like 28 to 35 seconds, because that's not long enough to extract any of the bad tastes, but you still get all the good creamy oils out of the coffee beans.
So
does all this make you want coffee now? Yes. Got it.
So he's asking me, like, because I got to start by saying, to give a little bit of feedback so far, this, and I'm not exaggerating or bending it all, this is literally a foreign language to me. I've never even dabbled with anything similar to this. I've never discussed this with Sam. So all these things you're talking about, from the terminology to the process, it is a foreign language to me. It's interesting as heck to think about how the density of it can change the outcome and passing water through it. And I know that's what the Nespresso does too, is it has all the coating around the outside. So it'll tell it how fast to go, how much to use, all that kind of stuff. This is like crazy. But to answer Donald's question, does this make me want to have coffee now? Because I am kind of like an analytical nerd and I love the process and stuff. No, it definitely does not. This seems like a
This
whole
makes
section.
you not want coffee now. You're like, I'm glad I never did this.
Dude, like I don't have enough bandwidth up here. There's no room for me because I'm the same way. If I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna learn all this. I'm gonna get every tool. I'm gonna do the same research path that you're doing, where it's like I gotta find the best one that's the best fit and stuff. So the strongest no ever. No for me. Is there any, I think it was it Judd the Stud in here? Is there anybody else that does not drink coffee? Drop a comment. I know a few people have cut back. I know a few people have stopped. I've never, like, this isn't something that I quit or anything. I just don't. This is so like, it's such a world that I've never even, you know, when you find like
That's
a
crazy.
niche, you find a niche community and you're like, I didn't know that world was out there. I didn't know it was so deep and complex. That's me right here. Like I had no concept of that. You were just speaking a different language.
Dude, yeah, I can imagine. Like this is it'd be like if I was sitting in a stream with people talking about fantasy football. I'd be
Oh, right. And I
I'd
could
be so
speak that
screwed.
language though. So
I have no idea. And and so a couple of side things came up here, people talking. So Jay Spears, you asked about what you use for cold brew, like the toddy. That's actually on the list that I put on here. And no, you're not archaic. I have one that I like better, but they don't make it anymore. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But like, yeah, the toddy is great. I mean, that's what you need. And we'll talk about what I kind of do with it after that, which I think is like the biggest step up that I took was putting this stuff on nitro and putting it in a kegerator, because that was like a game changer for me. But if you look at the list that we put out there, you know, there's a couple other things that we don't really need to click on each one, but under the espresso section, right, there's like the there's the 150 milliliter glass measuring cup that I like. You know, the scale, we looked at that. There's a distributor and tamper. I like that as well. The dosing funnel, we checked that out. And so I think that pretty much covers that, except for the last thing on there, which is the Nespresso machine on line 13. And this is the one that I have. They make a bunch of them. Like Nespresso licenses their name to various companies. So like Breville here makes a Nespresso machine, and that's the one I use. It's the Ventura line. And what I like about it is, believe it or not everyone in my house likes going through this process. Every morning they want hot coffee. I know, right? Mind blowing. Me too. But Jill, for example, she wakes up a little slower than I do. I'll be nice. Yeah, she takes a little longer to get up. She doesn't exactly have patience for processes in the first, 15 minutes of her morning, although she does deal with it to get espresso sometimes. We have this Nespresso machine, and I do two things with it. We use it for espresso pods sometimes if I'm in a rush. But mainly what we use that for is their coffee size pods. They have big pods that will actually make you a full cup of coffee. That's like normal drip coffee strength. It's not espresso. So on our counter, we have both Breville machines. We have this Nespresso machine, and we have the espresso machine I just looked at with you guys a minute ago. So, the people out there that are wanting good quality coffee, and, they want better coffee than they'll get out of a Keurig, but they also want espresso sometimes, and they just want good variation. These things are awesome. Like, the coffee pods aren't that expensive. They even make little metal ones that you can refill with your own grinds.
We have those now. Yep.
Yeah, they're great. And what I like about the Nespresso machine is it's actually way cooler than it leads you to think it is. Because instead of like a Keurig where you're just dripping water through a K-cup, and it's just like drip coffee, what this does is it's a centrifugal brewing system. So what actually happens is it takes those pods and it injects them with water through a whole bunch of little injection points. It has like 15 injection points for the water on the top of the pod when it punctures it. And then what it does is, as that water's moving through it, the water head with those jets is on a spindle. And so it spins that pod inside of that thing, and it spins the water through all the grinds. So you get full distribution inside that pod, and then it drips out back through the, through the bottom.
Yeah, you
So
see the spinning motion there.
yeah, and the centrifugal brewing is actually something that's like super unique to Nespresso. And I honestly, it makes a huge difference. Like you get full extraction, a full cup worth of coffee with so little grinds. It's actually like super economical. And so, being such a nerd with espresso and stuff, people usually think like, oh God, you must hate those like Nespresso machines then. No way. Like for something that like you can drop something in and push a button, I'd say it makes better espresso than like 90% of the places that you would go get an espresso from, where you got some kid behind the counter that was never trained on how to use their espresso machine.
And Sam is finding that. Like we went on vacation, as you know, to Portland, Maine, and then down to Massachusetts. Every place she went specifically for Nespresso or for espresso, and she was so disappointed at every single one. She didn't have a good
Yeah.
coffee on the trip, and she was
Yeah.
so excited to come home. And like you said, they had the big, massive, huge, like countertop, massive things, and she's like, it's just not as good.
No. And there's some places like some of the things I put on the list here, like George Howell and Pavement and some of these other roasters that are in Boston. You go to their place and get some of their espresso. I mean, it is good. Like it is
Right.
damn good
If they know how
espresso.
to
Like,
do it, yeah.
well, yeah, because they make it like they're the ones that are roasting it. They train their employees on the amount of time to do a pull and everything else. I mean, it really is nice. But you go to some of these other spots, you go to like a little coffee shop that makes breakfast sandwiches. You got some person behind the counter that, may or may not even drink coffee, and like they've never tasted what they're making. So they have no idea what they're putting out.
Right.
And so I think this kind of thing, I mean, for people who don't want to fuss around with a lot of stuff, and you don't want to worry about calibrations and flows and water volumes and everything else, don't fool yourself, right? If you don't feel like learning all of those things, don't get a regular espresso machine. You will never make a good cup of coffee.
Right.
No two ways about it. But if you want good espresso and don't want to have all that headache, these things are like freaking awesome. Like I
And I
love them.
will
I can't
say,
say enough.
as someone who has one in the home and doesn't know anything about them, two really cool features with Nespresso that I like. Number one, they recycle the pods. They send you a bag and they handle it for you. It's very easy, very simple. Number two, they have their own shipping program that is free, and it's 2 day shipping. It literally rivals, if not is better than Prime shipping. And that just takes all the headache, all the hassle out of it. And you can get these on like great sales on Amazon, but especially Target. Target runs some freakishly good
Yeah,
deals on Nespresso machines. But
they
don't
do.
sleep on the shipping and the recycle program.
It's huge. And they use Twin Peaks for their fulfillment. And they have 4 fulfillment centers. One's in Jersey, one's in North Carolina, and I think the other one's in Colorado, and there's one somewhere else out west or central somewhere. So no matter like where you are, Nespresso stuff will get to you with free shipping inside of 2 days. It's awesome.
Here's a local one by our buddy Dennis, and wants to know if you've had is it Leiden Street coffee?
Leiden Street, yeah. Leiden Street was in Plymouth and now in Manamet. No, I've never been to them. The ones we've been to downtown, we've been to like what is it, Kissimmee? I think is the one that's down on Main Street right
Later,
now.
buddy, later.
You
Not right
know.
now.
What's
I
that?
said later. Yeah. And I think Jill had a comment for me, but I guess I could have been for you. I don't know, but I thought it was for me. Who knows?
Okay, well, I can't say central fusion because that isn't what I said. I said centrifugal brewing.
Oh, you
Ooh,
lost her on the correction, but I love the execution.
centrifugal. Centrifugal. I can say it's super sensual. Oh God, easy, Joel. Don't bang down the door.
Right. Calm down. We only have a half an hour left.
Getting everyone a little hot and bothered here with my coffee talk.
Yeah, it ain't the coffee. Oh man. All right. Is now a good pause for some questions?
Yeah, let's
Okay.
do it. Let's throw some up before we go on to
Perfect.
the cold brew stuff.
So first one of the only ones that I can kind of relate to, and Mark wants to know, why do so many coffee scented beard products turn out to be way too sweet? Yeah. So Mark, a lot of beard products go to what I call coffee house scents rather than
Hmm.
coffee scents. And it's
Hmm.
that smell of walking into a coffee shop and you get hit with hazelnut and caramel and all of the different things that are in there. And I've rarely ever, once, maybe twice in the last 6 years, have found a coffee scent that was actually like roasted coffee. Now, the reason why I they must be selling, there must be a bigger market, I would assume, but I don't really
Also,
know.
I think there's probably not that many fragrance oils out there that they actually
Just
make to
coffee.
smell like just coffee beans. Like they're
Yeah.
normally trying to envelop, like what you said, like the overall coffee house scent, and that's
Yeah.
probably a lot of the fragrance oils that are getting used out there for that.
And follow-up question for you and especially Jill in the chat. And if you guys don't know, please feel free to say I don't know, and I don't. And this is one of the things where again, I don't mind admitting when I don't know something. Somebody I know, I thoroughly know fragrance oils. I even know the different levels of synthetic and natural fragrance, all the stuff. I know essential oils. But somebody asked me the other day, what are your thoughts on infused coffee scents? Meaning somebody will take
Mhm.
coffee beans and they will have them soaking in oil and then they'll use it. And I've had some before that actually have little fragments of coffee beans in them because
Yeah,
of the
we've done it.
filtering process. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Is that good? Is that bad? Is that safe? Is that legal? Where are we at on infusing into cosmetic beard products?
So there's a couple of things. One, I like it because it's a super duper cool way of doing it, right?
Right.
It's like, there's no better all natural way to get a scent in something than using a raw material and putting it with it. The challenge that you get is twofold. One is I've done this with cocoa nibs, I've done it with wood, I've done it with cedar, done it with oak, I've done it with coffee beans, and you do get some imparted scents, which are nice. The thing you got to worry about though is with the particulate, it really does affect oxidation and shelf life, like
Yeah.
huge, right? Like you're introducing a lot of surface area into an oil, and then you're going to be filtering it, which is introducing more air into it again,
Yep.
right? So you have multiple introductions of air, and you have the potential of, like you said, particulate in the bottom, which can hold and oxidize, and who knows what that's going to do when it starts to age in the oil.
Yeah, and
So
that's what I was gonna say too,
yeah,
is like a lot of people don't realize products lose their scent, they go bad and go rancid because of oxygen, right? We need
yeah,
oxygen. Oxygen's amazing, but it is what kills your products. UV
it
rays
is.
can speed it up and do a lot of things, but oxidation is what's going on. And like you said, that is introducing several stages of oxidation that you normally wouldn't have.
Yeah. And another thing that's in there is moisture, the water content of whatever you're putting in, right?
Interesting.
Water.
Oh, like the
Yep.
wood in your wood shop that takes years to dry out, that most
Right.
people think that's dry wood, but there's actually water content there.
A lot of it. Right. And
Interesting.
and what's crazy is people don't take what I think people take for granted is water is actually one hell of a solvent, right? Like there's a reason like when you're brining chicken, like you use salt and water, and the salt and water combo works its way into the meat of chicken within an hour, right? And so it's, water is one hell of a solvent. We take it for granted because we're surrounded by it. But if you were from like another planet and looked at water, like you wouldn't see Aquafina, you'd see one badass effort, of a chemical. It's brutal. We're made of it, so it's fine. But so I guess my answer is like I like that idea. I love
Okay.
the infusion idea, but I think it leads to, from a commercially available product perspective, I think it introduces a lot of variation that's tough to control.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm kind of on the same path. Or like when companies do a coffee scented beard balm and they put in actual coffee beans in the balm. And I'm like, well, part of me is like, well, you sell balm by weight, so that's a little bit strange to add in a heavy couple of coffee beans in there. But also what else are you introducing? How can you get that? Yeah. So I
The
agree.
consistency, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
tough.
It's interesting. Yeah,
Oh,
for
and
sure.
Jill's leaking some secrets there.
I
She,
saw that.
everyone's talking about the coffee scents. We got our hands on some really cool 100% CO2 expressed Arabica coffee essential oils that are freaking amazing. And they're just straight made out of coffee beans. It literally smells like unsweetened black coffee when you're smelling it. It smells like the inside of a coffee bag. So it's not sweet at all. There's actually zero sweetness to it. If anything, I would say it has almost a bitterness to it that you almost need to buffer with like something like a vanilla or something else, right? But Jill has been working on, and we're now close to releasing something using those oils. So anyone who wants a non-sweet coffee scent, keep your eyes and ears open because it's coming.
Yeah. And one thing that Jill touched on when I posed that question, and she said how good caffeine is for your skin. And I'm actually working on research about that right now because I'm a person that I don't like hearing things that people just say and regurgitate. For example, last night on the live stream, somebody brought up that car insurance goes up if you have a red car. And I looked into it. It's just not actually true. Now, there may be a chain of events that some people could argue. We don't really have stats.
There used to be like something with it, but there's not
Right.
anymore.
No, and people will say, well, it gets the police attention. You're going to get pulled over more, and then that will eventually cost you. Okay, like there may be a chain there and really hard to prove. But the fact is, if you go to a car insurance place and you say, hey, I would like to get car insurance, if they ask you if your car is black or red, it does not change your initial price of that car insurance. That's just a myth, but it sounds right. So people regurgitate it. I had heard about caffeine topically being great for your skin and for your hair growth, but I wanted to really look into it. There's actual real evidence, like actual clinical studies, peer-reviewed journals of it. And this like shocked me. I'm like, wow, this is actually true. So I'm on a deep hole right now of finding really good evidence on it. And it's actually coming true. So Jill's 100% correct.
Yeah, there is some benefit there. And the essential oils obviously carry some of that with it, right? So there could be some intrinsic benefit from a beard oil that uses a percentage of straight coffee essential oils.
And there's definitely ways to even infuse it and bring caffeine into a topical product. And so
there is.
It's interesting because there's things like biotin, right? There's never been in the history of this world a clinical study on the topical effects of biotin. That's been completed. There's some going on right now, which started pre-COVID, by the way. I've been waiting for a very long time. Come on, Redkin. But there's no evidence. But I'm also a believer that lack of evidence does not correlate to saying it doesn't work, right? We can't say biotin doesn't work topically. We can just say we don't know. We don't have evidence, right? The same way with actually, there's only been one study in the history of the world on biotin internally affecting hair growth and nail growth and hair health and nail health. And it essentially was like non-conclusive. They had only 18 people, unbelievably small sample size, and they all improved. Their hair growth improved, but they all had deficiencies. So were they selected because of their deficiency, or were they selected and most people just happen to have deficiencies? So we can't say one way or the other, but again, we don't have evidence to say they don't work. Caffeine, though, unbelievably documented, and it does work. So I thought that was really interesting. Super
interesting. Is it just topical, or is there anything that correlates any benefit to ingesting it? What is the difference?
That's my next step. I've only dove into topical. So I definitely fully intend on looking. I would not think, just personally, I would not think that internally, other than the idea is if it pumps your blood faster, maybe you're getting more nutrients to the source. There could be something there.
Yeah. I'd see like a capillary benefit maybe, right? But probably nothing else. But no, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and Jill does use coffee scrubs too, like the coffee. And Chris, for espresso, as dark as dark can possibly get, I want my beans to be like black when I'm using them for espresso. I am not a blonde espresso guy. I don't like medium Colombian espresso roasts. It's like not my thing. I like super dark Italian roast for espresso, but then for cold brew, I use a light, medium to medium light. And typically Guatemalan anything, Colombian, Guatemalan, that's kind of where it's at for me with the cold brew. But
now, does that have to do with the soil, the sun, the climate? What makes coffee beans regionally different?
Well, so the flavors come out regionally, and the altitude makes a huge difference.
Okay.
Oddly enough, but the roast is 100% the way you take a green bean and how long you roast it. So you can take any variety of coffee and turn it into a really dark roast, or use it as a medium roast or a light roast coffee. It's just the amount of time that it passes around inside the roaster, just like toast.
Okay.
You can take, any kind of bread, you can toast light, you can toast it black, right? So it's it's the same, it's a toasting process.
Okay.
But what makes a big difference with espresso beans and other coffee beans is the altitude in which they're grown. So like high altitude coffee is going to be a lot milder. It's going to be a little less acidic. It's going to get more floral. You're going to get more of the berry and the chocolate and the floral notes out of it.
Interesting.
Whereas the lower altitude ground grown coffees, like Ethiopian coffees that are not up high, they're a little more acidic, which covers up a lot of those tastes. But then you get some of the brighter notes, like the citrusy taste that you can get out of it, and some of the sharper notes come out of that stuff. And what's also interesting is the amount of shade that is around where the coffee is grown. So like high altitude shade grown coffee is very different than high altitude open air coffee beans.
Oh man,
it's crazy.
And great question by Donald here. He says, is coffee like wine when it comes to beans and cost? The normal consumer really can't tell a difference between McDonald's coffee versus Starbucks, but they think it's better because of more money. Is that true, or is there?
So I think there is a piece to that. Wine, I think, is much more like that, right? I think you could probably tell someone that a wine's $100 bottle and give it to them, and they'd be like, "Oh, this is fantastic, best I ever had." And turns out it's the $2 chuck from Trader Joe's.
Yeah.
I think with coffee, it's much more apparent, right? I think you can take someone that that likes coffee but doesn't know much about it, and you give them diner coffee versus, something from like a single origin roasted coffee roaster with their own shop. I guarantee you that person's going to be like, holy shit, this is really good. Like, there's going to be, I think they'll have I think it's much more apparent because bad coffee is bad and good coffee is good. Where I think like there is bad wine and good wine, but I mean, it's one of those things where unless you really know your stuff, you might not be able to tell. You'll be able to tell what you like, but whether or not that means something's higher end or lower end, you probably an uneducated palate wouldn't be able to tell.
On that note, so our favorite YouTube channel to watch is called Kara and Nate. It's a married couple. Talk about them all the time. We just love watching them. And they travel the world. And they're massive coffee people, kind of like Jill. Kara doesn't wake up before she has a full coffee. And when they go to remote places, they will bust out the scoop out instant coffee, just put it in your cup, add hot water. Now, they talk about how bad it is, but they talk about like needing to get through it. Have you had instant coffee like that? And is it better than nothing? Your remote location, scoop it in a cup, add hot water. Nothing else. Would you rather do that or just go nope, no coffee today?
I will pound cold water before I drank instant coffee. And
really,
I would wake up without it. And so we were in Iceland, remote place in the circle, and we stayed in a cabin. We messed up and we did not, we bought coffee at the gas station. And in the morning when I went to go get it in the coffee maker, realized that it was instant coffee. And I drove myself 20 minutes there and 20 minutes back to get the right kind of coffee so that we could actually make it in the coffee maker. Cause I took a sip and it was bad. It was just so bad. And like, I have little portable machines I bring with us now where I got like an Aero press and a couple other weird little portable espresso machines. I'm cold water. Exactly. Jill did drink it. And it was probably me making her. I was like, you will drink that coffee or I'm not dealing with you.
All right.
But well, so did you try any coffee that you hated and just couldn't try it again?
I think he's trying to get my origin story here of like, am I scarred and because of it? I actually don't know.
Was there a cup of coffee that touched you inappropriately as a child?
No, I don't have any like childhood trauma with coffee. I don't ever really remember drinking coffee. I remember like trying coffee flavored ice cream and coffee flavored this or that. And I just never liked it. And I've genuinely never had a problem with energy or getting up. Like you said, like some people wake up and they need their coffee and stuff. I wake up, I'm good. Like right away, I'm good. And I just drink water. Sometimes I'll have a pop with lunch, try to only have one pop once a day. But that's the first time I'll introduce any kind of caffeine or something. So I just simply didn't want to like it. So no, I don't have any like traumatizing memories with coffee. It's just nothing I wanted to dive into.
Well, speaking of diving in, being only 12 minutes left somehow, let's jump on to cold brew. So cold brew is a blanket thing for anybody out there wondering about cold brew, how to make it at home. There are lots of things on Amazon you can buy, and you can make your own cold brew. There's even things that fit inside your refrigerator with little screens inside that hold it all in a jug. You make it like kind of like sun tea, except you do it in the fridge. And they're great little diffusers. They can all be had for under $50, and a lot of them work great. And you can make anything from a couple of cups all the way up to a gallon inside your fridge and just dispense it right from there. The ratio is important. Like for me, I make it 3 gallons at a time, and I do my ratio is 3 to 2. So I do 3 gallons of water to 2 pounds of ground coffee. And so I'll walk through, cold brew, iced coffee, exactly right. And so here's the thing, they are different things, right? And you're pointing it out there, Beards and Vinyl. Cold brew is better than iced coffee because iced coffee is coffee that's brewed hot and then chilled, right? And so you get the bitter coffee taste out of it from the hot extraction process. And it happens in a minute, right? It happens real fast. Now, cold brew happens over the course of 18 hours. Some people will go 24 hours. Some people go 36. I think that's too long, and I think it gets you too much bitterness out of the coffee. I think the sweet spot is right between 18 and 20 hours. And what I like to do is you want to start with as coarse of a grind as you can possibly get. Like if your coffee grinder has a 1 through 10, set that thing on 11 and get it really, really coarse. That's for a few reasons. One, it won't sneak through your filter and you won't get all the black stuff in the bottom, which is good. But you get better extraction with the coarser grind. Oddly enough, it allows the water to move around a little more inside. The coffee naturally goes through a process when it's in a big steeper in a big body of water like that, and it plumes. And so what'll happen over the course of 18 hours is the coffee kind of puffs up and creates like this suspended aerated layer of coffee grinds on the top of the water. And that's the extraction process is happening there in the top, and it's happening and then it's falling because the molecules that have soaked with the coffee are heavier than the water that has not met with the coffee yet. So it naturally cycles itself down. The heavy coffee filled water falls, the other wet water rises. That creates this blooming process, they call it, inside the cold brew. And so that can happen right here with these first 2 lines. The one that's available now is line 16. And Jay Spears, I think, said this is the one that he has, and it's this toddy bucket. And he has a bag inside that you fill with the grinds. You fill the rest with water. You let it sit for 18 hours. You strain it out into another container, and away you go. Now, what I strain mine out into is line number 17 on the spreadsheet that I put out there. Line 17 on the spreadsheet is this keg. And so this keg, super nice, really easy to clean, got a great lid, seals really well, has you want to make sure it's a ball lock keg. Don't get a pin lock keg because none of your adapters that are readily available for keg and faucet systems line up with those much anymore. So ball locks are the way to go. This is also known as a corny keg, Cornelius keg. This is it's made for home brewing beer. And it's 3 gallons instead of 5. And the reason you want that is, well, I don't go through 5 gallons quick enough, oddly enough. And also it's tougher to fit in your kegerator if you have other stuff in there. So I like the nice little 3-gallon keg here. They're perfect.
Oh, so you need a kegerator for this?
Yes. So
do you
what
have
I
it
do
like with a tap to be able to pour it?
Yes, I do.
Hey, you fancy. Yeah.
And so if you look at line 18 on that spreadsheet, the kegerator tower, this is the tower I went with. So what I do is I took a garage freezer, like one of the top lift up freezers, and I mounted this right to the top door in the middle. And then what you do with the freezer is you get these little external controllers, and I forgot about it. I'll add it onto the list. What it is it's a little external box that you hang on your wall, and you plug the freezer into this box, and then you plug that box into the wall. And then you take a temperature probe and you put it into your freezer. And you can set 36 degrees, 38 degrees, whatever you want. You set that temperature on there. And what it does is it then turns your freezer on and off to maintain that 38 degrees to make your freezer into a refrigerator.
Wow.
And that way you basically keep everything in there right at the right temp. And it's with a little $50 controller. So you don't need to buy an expensive kegerator. Get a $100 garage freezer, get this little $50 plug-in box, and boom, you got a nice drop-in top kegerator that you can put this faucet on for really short money.
Huh.
And so what you do is I have one side of mine with beer on it. So the left faucet on mine goes to a keg inside my kegerator with Pacifico in it. So always have Pacifico on tap. And then the one next to it, I have this other faucet on there, which is line 20 on that spreadsheet, Dan. And this is what you need for cold brew. This is what turns this in from a kegerator faucet into a cold brew faucet. This is made for like beers, like a stout, like a Guinness. It's specifically a nitrogen line. And inside of it, it has an orifice plate that has little holes in it to aerate the coffee as it comes out. So beer usually gets dispensed between 5 and 15 psi of CO2. Cold brew coffee gets dispensed at 50 psi. Whoa. On nitrogen. So the faucet needs to be able to handle that kind of pressure.
Yeah.
And so this guy, though, if you dispense your coffee into that keg, the tank that I use is, let's see, it's line 21. So line 21 is your nitrogen tank. So you need to get one of these. I keep mine inside my kegerator with the keg. Just keep it right next to it. And you get a regulator that goes on this, whichever one you might want. And you get this filled at a welding store. So you go to a welding supply shop and they will fill one of these tanks for you filled with nitrogen, and they charge you about $18. Around $20, you can get this thing filled up. And this one tank, it's about this tall. That one tank though will last you about 10 fills of that 3-gallon tank, if not more. So you get the tank filled once, and then you can make 30 to 50 gallons of coffee get dispensed with that one tank.
And what is a tank? What is a 3-gallon cold brew? How long is that going to take you?
How long does it take to go through?
Yeah.
3 gallons will usually last us about a month.
Oh, okay. Wow.
In the summertime. So, give or take, like sometimes 3 weeks, I guess. And, whenever it starts getting low is when I start my next tank. And then I usually just pipe off the rest of what's ever in the keg into another jug that I'll put in the fridge. And then that way I'll have it freed up for when the next batch is ready. And I usually just give those bottles away to friends and, send Wilson home with one or give them away to neighbors.
So maybe once a year you refill this nitro?
I probably refill this. Honestly, I'd probably do twice a year. Okay. I had a leaky regulator for a while, so I was filling it like once every 2 months, and then I found my problem. And then I was like, okay. And now it's been, I don't know, probably 6 months. Now introducing Dr. Nick's Cold Brew, available for local sale only.
Right. Profit coming back from that investment.
Yeah. See, this is like, so I don't think Jill has quite been exposed to the amount of money that I've spent on making sure we have delicious coffee every morning until maybe this live stream. So,
right now.
In addition to answering questions from you guys on the stream, I might have some questions to answer downstairs when I get down there.
That is hilarious.
The grinder I'm looking at, there is an option for a single close hopper. A single dose hopper. So that would be if you have, instead of that big hopper on the top, that big cone, that would be for the amount of beans that you need for one dose. So you'd put just that one amount of beans in and you put it on top of the grinder and it only grinds that amount of beans. So when people use those, they'll start with the weight of the bean, not the resulting weight of the grind. So there is 2 ways to do it. You can weigh your beans, dump them in, not time your grinder, grind it all through, and you have the right weight because you started with the right weight. And there are 2 schools of thought on that. Some people don't like it because they say there can be lost, right? So you either don't care about time and you only put the amount you need in and it shoots that through and that's right. Or you put a big hopper in with a bunch of beans, you time how long you grind it, knowing that time results in what you want, and then you got it. So it's one of those things where you either calibrate time or you have to then weigh each time that you're putting a single dose in. And the guys that are like super into it, they do it that way. Believe it or not, there are people that are more into it than I am, and they will every morning weigh exact beans in a scale, dump those beans in, that grind is their pour. And so those people say that is more accurate and they like it better. And they call people like me schleps for doing it a less cool way.
Amateur.
But that is what that is. That definitely a single dose hopper is just for pre-weighted single dose grinds.
Nice.
I'd like to know which one you land on though and how you like it, because Breaking coffee. Oh yeah, definitely breaking coffee, dude. This
Right.
is like, yeah, this is
Man,
like the
that's
Breaking Bad of coffee.
That's a setup. And again, you guys, this link, this document is pinned in the chat. So if you want to click that, have it open on a link for you, it'll stay up afterwards as well. So you can come back anytime. But it is available for you to browse and see this whole setup here. And Nick, if people have questions for you, what email is the best to reach you at?
Oh, you can just reach us at customer service at drnix.com. That way, Jill and I will both see it. And when I get distracted, Jill will remind me that someone has asked me something that I have not answered.
And you can always find that if you just simply scroll to the bottom of the Dr. Nick's website, you guys.
Elitism in the beard game. The coffee industry is way worse. Oh, dude. Yeah. Beards and vinyl, you are dead on. Like, there's beard snobs out there, but if you meet a good coffee snob, you know, they'll make sure to make anyone feel not so great.
Right. Yeah. And I don't even see that too much with beards. I don't see people being like, I just use the best of the best, but I do see that with like coffee and even beer actually not even, but very much so beer.
You know who I do see that with beards? And this will be a great closing comment here. I see that with people who use products that suck and who think they have products that are good.
Oh yeah.
Like I met some dude at an event like 6 months ago, and I was like, he's like, we came up that we, you know, own Dr. Nick's and we do beard products. And he's like, oh yeah. He's like, there's a lot of little shops doing that. He's like, I don't really need to explore anything else. He's like, I use like the best of the best beard products. So I really don't want to use anything else. And I was like, oh, what do you use? He's like, Jack Black Men's Care. And I was like, ooh, best of the best, huh?
Yeah. To
right.
Take it a step further, I even talked about it last night. If there is elitism, it's guys that grow their beard and don't use any products, and that's their like I grew this with nothing, and I don't, but I literally always want to say, I know, I can tell.
Yeah, don't worry.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. So that is my final statement here. So Nick, final statement on coffee and just moving forward. I will say, guys, next week, we're going to do a recap on all of the new Dr. Nick's beard products, some things that were even snuck in the dark behind the scenes that you may or may not have noticed, especially if you're not on Instagram and Facebook. Please check out the Dr. Nick's Amazing Man stuff, Instagram and Facebook for all sorts of updates, cool pictures, and just some really fun content. My name's Dan. Appreciate you guys kicking it over to Nick. Even though we're switched, I can't do it. We got to switch back. There you go.
Yeah, I don't know. I almost just turned my chair around.
Yeah, right.
Where am I? No, guys. Well, thanks for hanging out for coffee talk here. This was fun. I like talking about random stuff that I'm into. I didn't even know. Like, if you asked me for a list of hobbies, coffee wouldn't be on there. And now people are like, oh, wow, you have this as a really cool hobby. Like, I had no idea that it had become a hobby, but I'm kind of ashamed that it has almost. But hey,
big time.
Here we are. But next week, back to beard products, talking about some cool stuff. And hit us up on the socials, customer service at drnix.com if you have questions about this. Or if you guys have other stuff that you found that you just think we might think is awesome too, send it over. I'm always looking for new toys. But thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you next week.